Show them all your documents, they will see you deserve no better. Okay, I will show all my documents. Hi, this is my first post in here about a thing which happened half a decade ago, but recent experience made me remember it vividly. I hope you enjoy my story. To give context, I live in Europe in a non-Anglophone country. I have always been a language nerd, and since my parents' divorce, English and everything in it, music, movies, internet, was my escape. So I was fluent before most of my classmates and got my CPE, Certificate of Proficiency in English, the highest certificate from the Cambridge Council, at 18. In my country, high schools are basically undergrad college and are finished between the age of 19 to 20, and a problem which almost all public schools have is terrible language teachers, most of them being former Russian teachers with minimal English or any other language education. Also, as my country is small and nobody could reasonably expect to use our language abroad, we put a huge emphasis on language studies at all levels of education, and it is often the thing which schools boast about to become more prestigious. So, enough context. From early on, my last high school English teacher and I kicked it off to a bad start. The first test she gave us came back all red because of words which are not in the textbook. The terrible teacher, TT for short, would do this to me for the full final 2 years. She would take my essays and tests, and cross out any word, phrase, or structure, which was not in the textbook we were using. I maintained that I will not go as far as to learn the textbook vocabulary by heart, just to remember which synonyms I was allowed to use, just because of TT's antics. I have managed to keep an A for 3 terms because there was nothing she could mark down on my grammar. The final term, however, TT learned that I wished to go to university to do Anglophone studies, a specialization her daughter had failed to be accepted for. She told me that as an explanation why I cannot ever hope to be accepted at the start of that term, and which, among dozen other things, required good or even perfect marks from high school language lessons and accepted only 5% of applicants. TT was dead set to make me fail. She started giving me the stupidest assignments and extra tests for misbehaving in class, being finished early and silently staring at a wall, which required me to mark the exact position of Disneyland on this A4 blind map of USA, exact quote I still remember after all those years. And more of the same shit. You could tell she was so satisfied by me failing these tests, she would have a grin on her face each time handing out the results. By this time I have been representing the school in language Olympics for both English and Spanish. She had no idea, because it was organized by another language teacher, and even though the principal made it into a big deal, TT was plainly uninterested. I have placed 3rd in the capital city district in Spanish and 6th nationwide in English, not to listing this to brag, okay, maybe a bit, but to use it later. By the end of the term, she got my mark down to AC. Mind you, all the grammar was still A's, but her blind maps of tourist attractions had taken their toll. I went to her to reason with her, but her reaction was, if you think a different teacher would propose a different mark, take all of your documents and go to one of my colleagues. But I believe it is clear to anyone that you do not deserve any better. So, I did. I took all my documents, the bloody blind maps, the grammar tests, by then a year-old PCE certificate and my 6th place diploma. I went to the teacher who organized the competitors and explained my situation. She was furious. She took this to the principal, and even though I was waiting outside, I could hear him yell at TT, "You are trying to fail the student who was representing us at the national level of competitions." It also turned out that with the CPE I had, by that time, a higher level of English education than TT had. I got my A. I got to the university and I love it there. I also started my own tiny language school where, among of course teaching the language to whoever is interested, I help kids whose language teachers are incompetent and or power-hungry morons. The impulse for me to write this was walking by the high school last week, and meeting TT. She acted like we have always been best buddies. A couple of my students are her students as well, so she knows about me. She hugged me in front of the high school kids present and exclaimed that I got where I was thanks to working hard in her lessons. I am still pissed I did not get the courage to tell her off there and then.
Now to the comments. She hugged me in front of the high school kids present and exclaimed that I got where I was thanks to working hard in her lessons. It's true, kids. Having someone in authority try to sabotage your education out of petty jealousy can inspire you to achieve your goals out of spite.
L'esprit de l'escalier.
That was an awesome story.
OP replied. Thanks.
But you still didn't tell her off, SMH. Use the right word for principal. You are good. Seems like many of the MC stories here are from school and mention their principal.
I can still get those two mixed up. Principal is principal and principal is principal because he's your friend. I always mix up capital and capital. I think it's Washington DC is the capital, and the Capitol building is there, but sometimes I have to look it up. I think all languages are weird. Talking with a native Spanish speaker one time went something like this. Me? Hey, what's the word for morning? Him, mañana. I thought that meant tomorrow. Puzzled H, it does. So how do I say this morning? H, este mañana. Thinks a minute. Well, how do I say tomorrow morning? H, mañana en la mañana. We both had a pretty good laugh.
I'm glad English is my native language, as I don't think I would ever be able to learn it as a second language. Great story. Your written English is better than a lot of native speakers.
OP replied. Thank you. I do sometimes get nervous communicating with native speakers, just afraid I will let out some terrible brain fart mistake. Laughing.
One of my favorite things on Reddit was a story of a German man that had a brain fart over the English word for silverware and called them food weapons. I have replaced any mention of spoon, fork, knife or silverware with the term food weapons. It feels more epic to say pass me my food weapons, good sir, I have a meal to slay. If you ever bump into her again and she does that, just laugh. Laugh like you have gone mad, just laugh and point and laugh some more and walk away. If you can manage to say that's the best joke I've ever heard as you walk away, more power to you.
OP replied. I love that idea. I have to try that. Laughing.
Do fill us in. Her lying using you might indicate she did not learn her lesson. She might still do this to other students. You might not want to call her out, but you need to ask the school pay extra attention to her students' performance and complaints. Even though it's obvious from the story's context, I forgot you weren't a native speaker as I was reading until you mentioned in the comments. Great English.
OP replied. Thanks a lot. I kinda should have it when I'm the English teacher now. Laughing.
Well done, and great revenge. Next time she tries to publicly take credit though, you have to set the record straight. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Lithuania or Latvia. Either way, well played, good sir.
OP replied. Close. Czech Republic, and thank you, smiley.
I've been there a few weeks ago, and the first word I learned was Nielko. Took me more than I would like to admit to figure it out what I means. If she tries that again, you can prepare a sweet and biting reply. I will admit that you were one of my inspirations to succeed and help other kids with poor language instruction and power-hungry teachers. How are former students of hers that you helped doing now? You know, Sometimes I take great satisfaction that the only people who really know the truth are me and the person who wronged me. For them it's a ticking time bomb. You think she likes faking up the friendliness? I bet she hates every second of it. I bet she hates it for hours after. She'll be fuming about it at dinner and it'll make her toss and turn a bit that night knowing they were caught being stupid, and at any moment that whole charade can be shredded by the truth. If I were you, I'd mark her birthday on my calendar and I'd show up with a cake. And maybe misspell her name. And invite her to every event you're a part of. The ones neither she or her daughter could do. Drown her in your success and make her smile while doing it.
Calm down there, Satan.
Well, you got to tell your story here. Hopefully some of your pupils or her former students will read it, recognize the persons involved, and will nod and smile. If not, just enjoy your Reddit karma, and the feeling of sweet MC.